This right here is my favorite.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my cabin, and yes, I do know this is not the Owl House video, but I'm getting to it. Please give me a break. It's a very long video, and I've asked my Discord server if I should work on smaller projects while I work on the big one, and a majority of the vote said yes, so I'm doing this just to give myself a break. But welcome back to my cabin, and today we're doing our first game review. Huzzah! Now, I know many are excited as I am for the remake of Off by Mortis Ghost that's coming to Steam, which is coming sometime this year. For that, I decided to go off adjacent for this review, going to one of the more popular fan games, that being one by my friend the Tiny Ghosty or Fire. Now, I'm going to say this first, I'm not forced, paid, or incentivized to do this review. Ghosty has just been my friend for a long time, and I made a review back in the day, and with the new updates being released, I thought I might as well give it the old go-ahead. Start with something you know? As well, the game is also partly developed by a person known as the Judge, or Felix, a friend of mine and Ghosty's who passed away tragically a few years back, and now lives on through his own fan project Home, and in this game, being one of the main people who did the soundtrack and worked with some of the sprite work. Now, before we get to one, we need to talk about Off. This is your spoiler warning. If you don't know the endings of Off, go to this timestamp. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, go. Off is a French RPG Maker game made by Mortis Ghost, released in 2008, that was a classic on the levels of Ib and Lisa, being a powerhouse in its own design. Its art style was unique, its story was out of the ordinary, and many things are left up to speculation, with many questions still being left unanswered to this day, like how somehow Batter is a lesbian. However, one of the endings to the game is where we start today's story. After the fall of the zones in the game, where everything is purified and the switch is turned off, is where the story starts. Zachary, the merchant of the previous game, is now in a dead world. He made something new. Using the elements given to him by the batter, he created a new life, a baby named Dew, pronounced Dew. I sometimes say ducks. After about 3 years, Dew is now talking and... hold on, that scarf looks familiar. Wait a second. Yep, you guessed that right. The scarf on my character was originally from this game, before it got redesigned to fit my avatar better. Make sure to give Ghosty a thank you for that. Now back on topic. Dew is now 3 years old, and is walking and talking like a child would. We learn a few things. He likes sugar, likes to run the fireplace, and loves his dad. Speaking of him, Dew finds Zachary and notices that Dew has a puppeteer, or us, the player, controlling his actions, just like the batter before him. Because of this, Zachary decides to teach Dew about combat and do the combat tutorial, and then gives Dew a doll named Buttons, who is our second party member. Zachary goes missing and Dew goes to find him, getting attacked by these weird blob monsters. He finds his dad, and an even bigger blob monster attacks him and knocks Zachary down, taking him to a sealed off chamber. After some puzzle solving and some combat, we face the blob and learn that Dew is something called a burnt. After beating it, we leave the zone for the first time, heading to Zone 1, and the adventure begins. Through this adventure, you will befriend the shopkeep Blight, who joins your party as a third party member, the new shopkeep Viola, who I can no longer legally call my wife because I am taken now. The previous guardians, and many, many more. On the way to save Zachary and defeat those who have taken over the zones. I'll also say this here, this game has a wide variety of verging paths. If you interact with the right things, pick up the right items, or talk to the right people at the right times, you could have different things happen. And that includes the boss fights. There are a wide variety of them, and even some special ones that you can find in the game, which can give you special items. No playthrough is going to be the same twice, so keep that in mind. There are many characters in this game, but we'll start with the main people, starting with Dew. Do is a marshmallow child who is a burnt, an incomplete person who can burn their body out if they're too wild with their emotions. Do was created by using the elements, so he wasn't complete, making him a burnt. However, he is a sweetheart who loves his dad, doesn't want people to feel alone, and lets people know he cares about them. That's some real powerful words from a 3-year-old. Yeah, he's 3 and fighting like hell. Put up those hands, baby. I want to see you throwing haymakers by the time you're 10.
And look at Randy Orton slithering. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
This kid is going through a journey of a lifetime and he still hasn't even learned to fully read yet. Boy deserves a hug. He's a genuinely nice character to follow around in the story and is a very useful tool as a player to have him as their surrogate, since he is so kind. Many times in RPGs they give us a cookie cutter character, but Do is full of personality and emotions and goals, and I love that for him. You go, Marshmallow Child. You go. Next is Buttons, who I actually have a plushie of thanks to the creator of this game, Fire. Buttons is a plush doll that was given to Do by his father at the beginning of the game, and is your loyal second hand throughout the entire game. He doesn't have much in the space of personality, but that's because he's a doll and he can't really speak much. He was originally made for someone else, but no one but Zachary knows who. Buttons will be by your side the whole time, needle in hand. Blight is next. Blight is a very interesting character. He's a copy of Zachary, but he's incomplete like Do is. He is also burnt, but is much farther along than Do ever has been. He starts as your merchant, selling you gear. However, after a confrontation with Do and learning about other people caring for him, he joins your party. Another character takes a spot as the merchant, who we'll get to next. He is also aware of the fourth wall like Zachary was. He was made by the people who took Zachary and was discarded by them, because he was imperfect and burnt. Unlike Do, he cannot control his burning by calming his emotions or anything, so he's doomed to burn up and die. But he's made a pledge to not drop dead until he sees the creators of his and the people who took over the zones taken down by his sword. While he's a very complicated character and I do him far from justice from just this short paragraph, you have to play the game to get a full grasp on his character, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Viola is next, and as you could tell, I have a fondness for the character. I like her so much I also have a plushie of her, also made by Ghosty. Viola is your shopkeep that you get after Blight joins your party. Her music is calming, her voice is nice, and just look at her, she deserves a hug. Viola is a caring character who has a fondness for the player and Do, knowing that they're good people who have proper intentions. She is also aware of the fourth wall, like all vendors in this game apparently, which is kind of funny. You first find her in Zone 2, and I look forward to hearing her music, knowing it's a safe space where I can be in. Combat is the classic RPG Maker 2003 style, with turn-based combat with a time in between attacks. Nothing wrong with it, it's a good basis. This is the same system the original off-game uses, so it makes sense to keep it, if we're staying in the same universe after all. This menu also gives many options, which are Attack, Competences, Defend, Object, Auto, and Flee. Attack is just a normal melee attack, while Competences are your special attacks that can deal or cure status ailments, deal more damage, or even heal. Do is kind of a mix of these attributes. Being your main healer, he gets a line of competences called Small, Medium, and Large Blessings, each one healing a small, medium, and full amount of health respectively. Buttons is your buffer, raising your attack and defense. Blight is not only a strong attacker, but he can also heal your allies of status ailments. And boy, are there a lot of those. There is things like Stopped, which stops your turn timer, Poison, which heals damage over time, Madness, which makes you attack your allies, Silence, that makes you can't use competences, and many, many more. These effects can also be put on your opponents, depending on your attacks and items. Speaking of items, there are many, many of them, and many of them come from the original off-games, such as Luck Tickets that restore HP, or Silver Flesh that restore CP. There are also special items you can get, like Lollipops that fully restore your HP and CP out of battle, and you can even find painkillers. This game also has gear, of course, which is stuff that raises your stats, like claws for ducks or swords for blight. You also gain special cards like the Chariot that makes your attacks deal more damage. Combat in this game can be ever-changing and depending on the circumstance, which is very interesting. The environments in this game are quite frankly great. I would give it that it rarely uses the same maps as the original game, but when they do, they're filled with new secrets, new dialogue, and much, much more that make these places feel even more alive than the original game. Though some maps are used at the center of the player, like most of Zone 0 and the beginning of Zone 1, by reusing some maps, this game has many more original maps than reused maps. There is also so much character in the new areas and the zones, showing the corruption of the zones through their new rulers. Each new ruler's environment is tailored designed to them, giving them hints and nods to the rulers themselves, such as notes in their writing or claw marks on the walls and much more detail that can be felt through the rulers as part of their environments. So far in the game there is Zone 0, Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and Zone 4, all of which look different and are quite special to each in their own ways. Zone 1 is icy and cold, while Zone 3 is dark and depressing, all of which can give off the respective feelings through their environments. If I had to pick my favorite place, it would have to be Zone 1, because of the snow, and the way it introduces the new guardians and many more details. It gives you so much to chew on for just the first zone. Here are some tips and tricks for the game if you're a new player and starting out and such. Here's what you should expect. Use items. If your CP is low, or if one or more characters are below half health, you should take a turn to heal up. Trust me, it's worth it. Use luck tickets, use flesh to raise your CP, or whatever you need to keep yourself in the fight. If you run out, you can most likely buy more. Grab these papers, trust me, they're important. When you enter the mall in Zone 2, do not use CP moves here. Most of the time your normal attacks will do enough. It's just a waste of CP. I learned this the hard way. Keep an eye out for codes. Have a notepad on your desk or your phone ready to unlock things with codes and ciphers. There's almost no need to grind in this game, even though you can. The only time I recommend is to get to level 4 with do and buttons before you fight the blob monster in the first area. Go back to the zone after you beat them and go to the boss's area. You might find something nearby. Once you finish Zone 3, return to Zone 2 and speak to Japhet, and he will give you a side quest that will get you a 4th party member, which is incredibly helpful in the final area. Once you finish that side quest, pay attention to dialogue by a ghost on top of the tower. You might hear about someone interesting. Make sure you pay respects to Felix in this room, he deserves it. Many playthroughs are revised if you wish to see everything. I think it's impossible to see everything in a single playthrough, so keep that in mind. Overall, 1 is a passion project, and ooh boy can you tell. It's full of amazing sprite work, fun story, interesting characters, and so much more. There's so much you can put in and take out from this game. Anger, pride, kindness, and many other emotions and feelings can be felt in this game, giving a wide variety of each. Honestly, if this game was a hidden true sequel to the original Off, I wouldn't even bat an eye. In fact, I would say fuck yes. Now, there is only a 4.8 version of this game available, meaning that this game isn't completed yet. But honestly, I have poured more than 15 hours into the game on my current playthrough on this newest version, because it's that good, and some AAA games can't even get that out of me. Plus, it has so much content in there that it's not even finished yet. I could say it's worth playing, even now. And I wouldn't say that about most demos. Now I ask, would I recommend this game? Fuck yeah, I would! It's truly a stylistic masterpiece and a true love letter to the original Off that I hope for one day Mortis Ghost gets to try, along with the Fangame home. Now, if I were to give this game a ranking, I would say a 9.5 out of 10. Is it a perfect game? No, it has some flaws, and it's still in playtesting, even run into a few glitches myself, so take that with a grain of salt. But Ghosty, you're doing an amazing job, and thank you so much for this game. Now I would like to thank a few people, first being my thumbnail artist, Bushi. Here's their blue sky handle and the image of their page. Their art is amazing, and I'm happy to call them my thumbnail artist and friend. I would also like to thank my patrons, Nix Hunter, Vixenville, and Zerk Tree News. Thank you for your support. For now, it was wonderful having you in my cabin. But for now, support the original artists, get cozy, and enjoy your night. May the darkness guide you.